What horrific secrets were hidden behind the walls of Unit 731 in Manchuria? How did the Japanese Kai-10 human torpedoes embody desperation and fanaticism during the final days of World War II? What was the true story behind Japan's campaign of balloon bombs, Fugo, drifting silently over the Pacific? Could biological warfare from Unit 731 have changed the course of the war? And why was it so tightly concealed? What made these wonder weapons fail, despite their terrifying ingenuity and the lives sacrificed in their name? Today, we uncover the darkest experiments, the most desperate weapons, and the real reasons why Japan's so-called miracle machines ultimately could not win the war. Get ready for revelations that go beyond human imagination. Let's dive in.
Biological Warfare, Unit 731 and its Horrifying Experiments, 1932 to 1945. One of the darkest and most horrifying episodes of World War II related to Japanese wonder weapons is the activities of Unit 731. This section of the article is dedicated to the secret biological experiments conducted by the Japanese on living human beings, revealing the monstrous reality of the unit involved in the development of bacteriological weapons. Unit 731 was a special unit of the Japanese Armed Forces created for research in the field of biological warfare. A distinguishing feature of its activities was the conduct of experiments on living people, prisoners of war, and civilians. This unit operated near Harbin in Manchuria, in occupied China, under conditions of strict secrecy. Annually, over 3,000 people were killed as a result of inhumane experiments, testifying to the scale and systematic nature of these crimes. The Unit 731 complex was a huge, self-sufficient infrastructure for the production and testing of biological weapons. It included extensive laboratories, facilities for mass production of bacteria equipped with powerful boilers, an airfield with hangars for the delivery and dissemination of agents, as well as a special prison for holding test subjects and a crematorium for disposing of bodies. The methods used in Unit 731 were beyond human comprehension. People had their limbs amputated, were subjected to frostbite or severe burns, and placed in decompression chambers to study the effects of pressure changes on the body. Experiments were even conducted on children and pregnant women, highlighting the Japanese scientists' absolute disregard for human life and ethical norms. Vivisection experiments were actively carried out, meaning vital organs from the intestines to the brain were removed from living people to study their functioning under various conditions. Japanese researchers experimented with a whole spectrum of dangerous diseases, including plague, anthrax, smallpox, botulism, cholera, and typhus. A particular achievement of the group was the development of a strain of plague bacillus that was 60 times stronger than normal, making it an extremely deadly weapon. The first attempt at combat use of biological weapons by the Japanese occurred during the battles of Khalkhin Gol against Soviet and Mongolian troops. Subsequently, the Japanese developed a ceramic bomb designed to spread plague-infected fleas, indicating their intention to use this weapon on a large scale. A little-known fact related to Unit 731 concerns the strict secrecy surrounding its activities. All unit personnel were warned of the need for complete confidentiality. In documents relating to certain projects, such as the Kai-10 manned torpedoes, which also involved secret developments, code names such as Maru Roku Kanemono Diameter 6 were used to conceal the true nature of the developments. After the war, many materials from Unit 731 were classified. There are rumors that some Japanese war criminals involved in these atrocities avoided prosecution by handing over their data and research results to American authorities in exchange for immunity. If true, this is another dark aspect of this tragic page in history, demonstrating cynicism and pragmatism in the post-war world. The activities of Unit 731 remains one of the most disgraceful examples of the use of science and technology for mass destruction and inhumane experimentation.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. The idea of creating human-guided torpedoes, or Kaiton, heaven shaker, or changing fate, arose among Japanese naval officers after the catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Midway in June 1942. This defeat became a turning point in the Pacific War and pushed the Japanese command to seek radical, even suicidal solutions to change the course of events. Lieutenant Sekio Nishina and Hiroshi Kuroki initiated this ominous project, proposing it in January 1943. Legend has it that the officers, eager to draw attention to their proposal and demonstrate their resolve, wrote a letter to the Minister of the Navy in their own blood. This act, if it indeed occurred, eloquently speaks to the fanatical devotion and willingness for self-sacrifice that permeated Japanese military society at the time. The Kaiton Type 1 was a modified torpedo with a diameter of 1 meter. Its nose section contained a massive explosive charge weighing 1,550 kilograms, providing colossal destructive power. The total length of the torpedo reached 14.75 meters. In the small cockpit intended for the pilot, there was a steering wheel, a minimal set of navigation instruments, and a periscope for observing the target. The torpedoes were equipped with 3 fuses, a contact fuse, which activated upon collision with the target, an electrical fuse, directly controlled by the pilot, and a self-destruction fuse, which was to be activated by the pilot in case of a miss or inability to reach the target. Kaiton were not independent units. They were attached to carrier submarines externally. Typically, one such submarine could carry 4 Kaiton. The pilot entered the torpedo through a special transfer hatch, which was an extremely risky operation. It is important to note that Kaiton pilots had virtually no chance of survival. These machines were designed as one-way weapons, implying the pilot's death along with the target. In the book of Kaiton pilot Yutaka Yokota, there is an interesting quote. For secrecy purposes, during training and in various documents, Kaiton was referred to as Maru Roku Kunamono, which can be roughly translated as metal fitting diameter 6. This testifies to the Japanese command's attempts to keep the project secret, using code names even for those directly involved in its implementation. The name Kaiton itself also has a deep symbolic meaning. It comes from the crest of the famous Japanese Kusunoki dynasty, which was painted on the conning towers of the first carrier submarines. The crest is composed of 2 kanji characters, Kiku, Kinshima-theme, and Sui, which expressed one of the highest Japanese ideals, loyalty. Thus, the Kaiton were not just weapons, but an embodiment of fanatical devotion and a willingness to sacrifice oneself for the empire, changing fate with the outcome of a suicidal strike. The Kaiton project vividly demonstrates the desperation of the Japanese command in the final stage of the war. Faced with the overwhelming superiority of the enemy and dwindling resources, they were willing to sacrifice the lives of their soldiers, turning them into living torpedoes in an attempt to inflict the maximum possible damage and turn the tide of the war. Fugo, balloon bombs across the Pacific Ocean, 1944 to 1945. In a desperate attempt to bring the war to the American continent, Japan developed a unique and unusual weapon, Fugo bombs. These balloons were intended to use high-altitude air currents to cross the Pacific Ocean and reach the western coast of the United States, where their task was to cause widespread forest fires and spread panic. The history of this weapon is closely intertwined with the tragic incident in which a pastor and a group of children became the only victims of enemy violence on American soil during World War II. The idea of using balloons to attack enemy territory was not new. As early as the 1930s, Japanese Army Major Makoto Kondo proposed attacking Soviet territory with balloons carrying incendiary bombs. However, this project was halted in 1935. In 1942, the Japanese Navy revived this concept under the codename Fugo. Initially, it was assumed that the balloons would be launched from submarines 1,000 kilometers off the U.S. coast, but this program was canceled in August 1933 due to logistical and technical difficulties. Despite early failures, the Fugo project was reactivated, and between November 1944 and April 1945, Japan launched over 9,300 incendiary balloons. This was a masked, though inaccurate, weapon. Approximately 300 bombs from these balloons were found or observed in North America, from Alaska to states like Oregon, South Dakota, Utah, and Texas. The design of the balloon was relatively simple but effective. A 10-meter diameter balloon was filled with hydrogen and carried a 15-kilogram high-explosive fragmentation bomb and 4 5-kilogram incendiary devices. The balloon envelopes were initially made of rubberized silk, but due to resource shortages, special washi paper, glued from many fragments, was soon used. Notably, these balloons were made by school children, highlighting the mobilization of all sectors of Japanese society for wartime needs. The bomb's flight was intended to last about 72 hours, allowing it to cover the vast distance across the Pacific Ocean using high-altitude jet streams. The most tragic incident associated with Fugo occurred on March 5, 1945. Pastor Archie Mitchell, his pregnant wife, and 5 Sunday school students stumbled upon a Japanese balloon bomb in a forest near Bly, Oregon. An explosion occurred, killing the pastor's wife, 5 boys aged 11 to 14, and their unborn child. These 7 people became the only victims of enemy violence on American soil during World War II. The U.S. government deliberately suppressed information about the balloon bombs to avoid causing panic among the population, which, unfortunately, led to this tragedy. There was a rumor that the balloon bombers were initially intended not only for incendiary bombs, but also for delivering capsules with biological weapons to U.S. territory. Allegedly, the Japanese were preparing to launch a pandemic of anthrax and cowpox, and only an imperial decree from Emperor Hirohito halted this terrifying plan. A little-known fact about Fugo is that these balloons are traditionally considered the first intercontinental guided weapons in history, predating modern intercontinental missiles. Despite their primitivity and limited effectiveness, they represent a significant step in the development of long-range weapon delivery systems. The Fugo project was a vivid example of the ingenuity, but also the desperation of the Japanese war machine, ready to use the most unusual means in a hopeless struggle. We have learned about the horrifying experiments of Unit 731, the fanatical self-sacrifice of chitin pilots, and the unusual but tragic history of the Fugo balloon bombs. These stories demonstrate both technical ingenuity and complete lack of moral boundaries when war reaches its climax. This concludes our story. If you found it interesting, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.